Hey community, so I wanted to make a video about the Sony E3 conference and some of the other news that's come out about the PlayStation 4. You're not going to see me talking all about Microsoft's E3 conference. We did that last night in the YouTube Gaming Community Live 18 live stream, and not going to make a video and talk about a company that I just don't support their practices. I'm not going to talk about Xbox One because I quite frankly, even though their E3 for Microsoft, their E3 presentation was better than the reveal, the DRM is just too much for me to get over to buy that system, and also the price tag of 500 is just way more than I'm willing to spend on the system. Now, I'm going to talk about my history with the PlayStation systems, because originally when Sony announced the PlayStation 1, which the PlayStation 1 originally was supposed to be an attachment to a Nintendo system, but Nintendo eventually decided not to do that, and it turned into what eventually became the PlayStation 1. Sony didn't give up on it. They further developed it, and they made their own game system. And when they first announced the PlayStation 1, I was really hesitant of it because a big company was moving into the video game market. We had Nintendo, we had Sega. Even though NEC was a big company at the time, they just didn't feel like it over here where I live at. So Sony, to me, was my first feeling of a big company moving in, and I just was reluctant to buy their system. I didn't want a big company moving in and, to my opinion, ruin what I love about gaming. But I eventually tried the PlayStation 1, liked the games, eventually got the system, and loved it. Had a lot of fun with that system. That system actually, when I first met my wife and she tried my PlayStation 1, she liked it so much that first Christmas we were together, she didn't get one, so she went and bought one. And she got Crash Bandicoot with it and Treasure of the Deep. And that was the first time I played Crash. It was a great game, great platforming series. And so, we would used to sit there later when we got our apartment together. We both set up both of our TVs on the weekend, have both of our PlayStation 1s and just next to each other, sit there playing games all weekend. So PlayStation has a lot of very memorable moments of me with my wife. PlayStation 2 came out. It had backwards compatibility. That's the only thing I had to hear about PlayStation 2 that was backwards compatible to the 1, and I was in for it. That's what I wanted. That's it. And we both got one, and again, another great system with a bunch of great games, and a lot of fun with it. But when Sony originally announced the PS3, this is where I got upset at Sony. This is where my love for Sony turned to hate. It was hate because they announced it at a $600 price tag. The two previous generations, why they weren't the cheapest system, but they weren't outrageously expensive. I had originally thought, and it said, I thought the PS3 was going to be the Neo Geo of the last generation, this current generation, since we're about ready to go next, because that was too expensive. People weren't going to be able to buy it, and the system was going to die out. And Sony made so many mistakes through the course of the PS3, especially early on. The hacking thing happened, and even though the PS3 worldwide outsold the Xbox 360, it never seemed to get its footing going. The games, even though they sold decent, never seemed to get, PlayStation game was number one, or just the momentum that the other systems had gotten. So I was hoping, the only thing I had for Sony this E3 was learn from your mistakes. Don't make the mistakes you made last time. Bring me back to being a fanboy of your product, because I loved the PlayStation 1 and 2. And I like the PlayStation 3. There are things about it I don't like, but overall, I like the PlayStation 3. I only played the 360 because it's down here and the PlayStation 3 is upstairs, and that's where the family is all the time, so there's very little time to play that compared to the 360 down here. And so, I watched E3 last night. I watched Sony's conference, and I was impressed. I was also very happy to see when they announced the used game that they were, you can do whatever you want in used games, that the crowd went wild, that they actually got a standing ovation for the fact they announced, you could do whatever you want with your used games. And I loved, not even only did I love the fact that Sony did it, but I love the fact that Sony put up a video later that night making basically, what you could do with your used game, basically making fun of Microsoft. I thought that was a cute little thing to do. They got a lot of great games. I actually love the indie game aspect more than anything. I mean, you had the Oddworld reboot. You had the shmup there. you know, interesting games like the Puppeteer, things that you normally don't see, right? That's what I mean. Sony always brings you different kind of games. What I was surprised that Sony didn't do, and I've said that in the live stream, was Twisted Metal was a launch title until the last generation, or none of Sony's actually real. Actually, Sony didn't announce a single one of their big first-person titles for the PlayStation 4, which kind of surprising, but I guess it wasn't necessary for them. I mean, maybe that's down the road where they're 6 months they announced it was more of a momentum builder for the PS4. But overall, I did like the game selection. They had things like the Order 1886, which looked different and interesting, and they did a bunch of different things. The fact that Elder Scrolls Online is going to be out for the PS4 first kind of surprised me. I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting the Mad Max trailer. I wasn't expecting either. Love the Mad Max movies. Kind of surprising. Though when I first saw it, I thought it was Fallout 4, but it wasn't. But overall, I was pleased with the presentation. The $400 or basically $399 price tag, $100 less than Xbox One, was like, wow. I'm still used to the $200 price tag for a system, but still $400 is not, oh my god, I can't afford it. When I watched Xbox One, when they were throwing the Twitch on and the editing software to videos and stuff like that, I knew the price tag would keep going up. So I was glad that it was only $400. I was glad that your online account transfers over to the PS4. I would have liked, again, if your games would transfer that you bought in the indie store, but that's not necessarily Sony's decision. That, of course, is the publishers' and developers' decision to let those games continue on, and clearly that's just not going to happen. So the one of the things that came out today that was also excited for was the fact they announced that the CEO of Sony did on Twitter announce that the PS4 is region-free, which to me is very important to a system. I really wish Nintendo and Microsoft would make their systems region-free, because if they would understand that if you made your system region-free, I'm not going to necessarily go out and buy that game overseas and not buy it over here. I want it region-free so I can buy the games overseas that aren't coming out over here. And I don't think these companies understand that. I don't. If I want to buy the game early over there, that's great. But more importantly, it's not going to count to that many sales. The true reason why gamers want region-free is to buy the games that don't come out over here that they know they're never going to see from other countries. And I think region-free, that the whole regional lock thing is an old and antiquated system that I wish all companies would understand just doesn't work. There's a way to jailbreak those things, and people will find a way around it. So it's almost worthless to put your time into region lock in your system. Other aspects I understand. Personal information, the cloud, stuff like that. That's stuff that needs to be locked down. But region free is just, there's no reason for it. There's actually no gain to lock a system regionally. There just isn't. So I was really excited about the PS4. My wife, who is a PlayStation fan, was really excited. So again, I said this before. For us, it was a decision of Sony and Nintendo. It was not Microsoft. And right now, I'm getting ready to watch the Nintendo conference. Right now, Sony is slightly in the lead for me. Nintendo has to do something to blow me away at the conference. But I'll talk to you guys later. I have to go.